Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started by officially welcoming all of you guys. Sawadee Khap. Welcome to Wat Tung. Sawadee Khap. Welcome. Today is our group learning program where we study the teachings of the Buddha, helping students to be able to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You can train your mind to get to the point where you're never even in a bad mood anymore. You're just always experiencing the peace and joy in the mind. And this comes with training. There's a certain amount of learning that you need to do. There's a certain amount of reflection to independently verify the teachings. And then there's practice in order to transform the mind and train the mind. The way that we do our class is we start with a meditation in order to help you guys learn how to do meditation and actually do meditation together. And then after meditation, I'll open up to any questions you guys have, because oftentimes students are building up their meditation practice and you might need help. So those of you guys here at the temple, you can ask any questions that you like. Anybody online, you can ask questions as well by putting those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that you like. And then after we do meditation and open up to any questions to help you guys build up your meditation practice, we'll be moving into chapter 6 of our book that we use for this program. This program, it's a 7-month program, and we're in chapter 6, which is titled The Middle Way, Walking the Middle Way. This is a very simple, very basic teaching of the Buddha, but it's very profound when you understand how to apply it to your life. So I'm going to teach this to you, helping you understand what this simple teaching is, and then I'm going to help you with examples and show you how to actually apply it to your life so that you can get benefit from learning this teaching. And as I mentioned, as we go, you guys can ask any and all questions that you like. In terms of meditation, you'd probably like to get a position either seated, lying, standing. There's also a walking position that the Buddha used as well. There's 4 different positions, and you would use these at different times for different reasons. I see most of you guys are sitting either in a chair, on the floor, or lying. What you would like to do if you're sitting is have some probably cushions under your rear, and that helps to get the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. By lessening the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, it allows the circulation to flow, and you'll get the ability to sit for longer periods of time. The hands and arms, you put your right hand over your left with your thumbs together, and the Buddha put this into his lap. And if this is helpful for you, you could do it this way. But this isn't about everybody doing it exactly the same way. There's other options for you as well. You could put your palms on your thighs, palms on your knees. You could put your palms up. And as I mentioned, not only can you sit on the floor, you can sit in a chair. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or cross their ankles. If you're laying on the floor, people typically will like to lay on their back with their face up, and this helps the body to completely relax. And there's even a standing position and a walking position as well. I'm going to be going into meditation with some chanting in order to ease us into meditation. And if you would like to chant along, there's laminated sheets on the table there that have the chants, because we chant in the Pali language, and you're welcome to get those if you like. And it even has the English translation so you can see what we're doing. The chanting isn't a rite or ritual or ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. The Buddha used chanting during his lifetime to help his students commit his teachings to their memory. So he would teach, and then about once every 2 weeks, they would recite his teachings word for word as a way to commit them to memory. So we still chant today, but we don't need to do that in order to commit the teachings to memory, because we have books, videos, podcasts, things like this that can capture the teachings, and then you can learn them and commit them to memory that way. But we still do chanting just to kind of ease the mind into meditation. Once we get into meditation, I'll provide you some guidance that will help you to understand how to do the meditation in the way that the Buddha taught. And then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be completely quiet and we'll all be meditating together. And then after that, I'll come out of the meditation with some chanting as well to ease us out of the meditation. And then that's where I'll open up to any questions that you would like to ask. So if you'd like to get any meditation cushions or a chair or anything that you need, a chanting sheet, feel free to do that at any time. I'm going to go ahead and get started, but you're welcome to get anything that you need in order to do the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva พุทธังมหาเขวันนังอภิวาเตมิสวัสคาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเขวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตวะมนุสนังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose, breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance, just reminding you that whenever you get to your next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, establishing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Once the breath is well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it has moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Just wherever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาพุทธังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation, this meditation that we just did is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of training that the Buddha used in order to make his way to enlightenment. There's other teachings that one would need besides just meditation, but meditation is one of the primary trainings that you use in order to move the mind to enlightenment and transform the mind. This breathing mindfulness meditation, what you're doing is you're cultivating mindfulness or awareness of mind. You're also cultivating concentration where you can have focus and clarity. By focusing on the breath, you're gaining the ability to have this concentration of the mind. And then you're training the mind to easily let go. And these are important qualities to have during your daily life, because as you go through life, you would like to have awareness of what's going on in the mind. Are there wholesome things that are happening? Are there unwholesome things that are happening? Because you need to transform your mind in order to make your way to enlightenment. And you're going to need that concentration to be able to focus on a single object. You're going to need the ability to easily let go, because the enlightened mental state, it's where your mind becomes peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You no longer experience sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy. Even the slightest displeasure is eliminated from the enlightened mind. You're always in a good mood. You never experience a bad mood any longer. And you see your personal and professional relationships will blossom, because as you transform your mind and you interact in the world differently, you'll see that you'll experience different results. Where right now you might have certain relationships that are maybe challenging for you. You might find there's a bit of roughness or harshness in these relationships, but you can improve this through training your own mind. And one of the things that causes these discontent feelings, the primary thing, is craving, desire, attachment, this mental longing and strong eagerness. The mind is causing its own anger. The mind is causing its own frustration, its irritation, its annoyance. We oftentimes don't see that in the unenlightened state. We think other people are causing us to be angry. We might even say to them, "You are making me angry," or "You are annoying me." But this isn't actually true reality. This is the unknowing of true reality that the unenlightened mind has. As you study the teachings of the Buddha and you independently verify them and see the truth for yourself, you can see that your mind is causing its own anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings. And that's why you can eliminate them. You can eliminate them and attain this enlightened mental state. So this exercising of the mind that we do with meditation, among other teachings that you need, you're exercising the mind about 2 or 3 times a day for about 30 minutes or more. And you need to gradually build up to that. Oftentimes it takes 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to that kind of frequency and duration. So in this meditation, as you're exercising the mind, you're not trying to eliminate the thoughts. Oftentimes people think that's the case based on the instruction and the guidance. But what you're doing is you're trying to quiet the mind and still the mind. You're trying to more readily observe and notice that the mind has moved off the breath and bring it back more easily. So in meditation, you're exercising the mind to cultivate this awareness of mind or mindfulness, this concentration, this ability to easily let go. So that now in daily life, with that awareness of mind and concentration, as you notice the anger starting to arise, you can cut it off and let it go, if you've been training your mind that way. So in the meditation, you're cutting off anything that comes up. In daily life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome qualities that are coming up. For example, if you're in a relationship and you have a craving to go outside your relationship, to have sex perhaps, you know this is going to cause harm to your partner, to you, to other people. As you see that unwholesome craving coming up in the mind, you cut that off and let it go, if you've been exercising the mind this way. So there's various unwholesome qualities that you learn about on the path to enlightenment that you can be aware of when they're arising through your mindfulness, and then cut them off and let them go in daily life. And eventually, if you do this enough times, they won't arise because you've completely purified the mind. And it starts with training your mind in meditation and then other teachings as well. So what I'm going to do is turn things over to you guys to see if you have any questions, either here at the temple or those of you guys online. If you have any questions about meditation or the Buddha's life or the path to enlightenment or what enlightenment is. For those of you guys here in Chiang Mai, if you've been touring around the temples and you've seen things that you don't understand, I'm going to turn things over to you guys to allow you to ask any and all questions that you like. And then for those of you guys online, you can ask questions by putting it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that you like in Zoom, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple. And then for those of you guys that are here at the temple, as you guys ask questions, we have microphones in this white bowl. If you just turn on the microphone, the people online will be able to hear you. And don't worry, you don't have to be scared of the microphone. It won't bite you or anything like that. It's just so that the people online will be able to hear your question, and then we'll all be able to participate together. So let me know if you guys have any questions about the meditation or the path to enlightenment or anything related to the teachings of the Buddha, and I'll help you. And then after this, we'll move into a topic of discussion to help you guys learn some of the teachings of the Buddha. Does anyone have any questions? Would you be able to get the microphone there so that the people online will be able to hear you? There's a button on the front. You just have to turn it on.
What does meditation have in common with sleeping?
What does meditation have in common with sleeping? Nothing at all. Sleeping is not meditation. Sleeping, you're resting the mind, right? The mind and the body needs a certain amount of rest. So we sleep in order to recoup and recover that's what you're doing during sleep. With meditation, it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're either eliminating certain unwholesome qualities or you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. And you're doing this either in the seated, lying, standing, or walking position. So if somebody's sleeping, they're not actually meditating. This is one of the misunderstandings in the world. Someone might say, I'm going to go to the gym and meditate, or I'm going to go walk the dog and meditate, or I'm going to go for a drive in the car and meditate, or I'm going to go do some gardening and meditate. This isn't actually meditation. These are activities in and of themselves. So sleeping, gardening, driving, exercising, these are activities that someone might enjoy and they might benefit from, but it's not this dedicated, active, purposeful training session to either eliminate certain unwholesome qualities or arise certain wholesome qualities in the seated, lying, standing, and walking position. So if somebody thought that sleeping was meditation, for example, and I said, okay, you need to do 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more, and this is part of what leads to your enlightenment, and people just went to sleep for 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more, they would never get to enlightenment through doing that. And same thing like going to the gym or driving or walking the dog. If they did that 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more, they wouldn't be able to experience the enlightened mental state. So you need meditation in order to get to enlightenment, but you can't meditate your way to enlightenment. You need more than just meditation. That's why after we talk here, I'm going to share some teachings with you guys that one of the biggest myths in the life story of the Buddha that people have is they think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then he instantly got to enlightenment. But this isn't actually true. When you read his teachings, he talks about this gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. He even says, like really clearly, he says it was not instantaneous that he got to enlightenment. He talks about that very clearly. And the same thing is true for you, that you're going to need this gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. That meditation is part of that, but then there's other things that you need as well. So I share with people, you wouldn't be able to meditate your way to enlightenment, but you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation either. So you need meditation, but you need other teachings as well. And you're going to need sleep as well. Right? You're going to need the rest. But what you might notice is as you train your mind more and more, and you're getting the pollution out of the mind, because the Buddha discovered these 10 individual pollutions in the mind, as you're transforming the mind and eliminating this pollution, you might notice that you need less sleep. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, when we're struggling with sadness and frustration and grief and misery and despair and sorrow and all these other discontent feelings, we tend to need a lot of sleep because the mind is really taxed through having all these erroneous discontent feelings. You might get to the end of your day and you feel completely exhausted in the unenlightened state, depending on what you've been doing in your day. By the time you get to enlightenment and you uplift the pollution out of the mind, you will conduct your life with ease and comfort, and you'll notice that you might need less and less sleep. Even some people sleep 4 or 6 hours a day in the enlightened mental state. Some people sleep 8, just depends. But like one time in my life, I remember I used to sleep 16 hours a day. My mind was so polluted and I was doing so many unwholesome things. I would literally sleep for 16 hours a day sometimes. On average, maybe even 12 is what I was kind of sleeping at one point. So you can get to the point where you've uprooted these pollutions out of the mind. Your mind will function more optimally, and there you'll need less sleep during those time frames. Yeah, let me just repeat that because I'm not sure the mic was on. This gentleman asked, is it wise to meditate before sleep so that you have better sleep? Sure, you can do that. These 2 or 3 sessions per day, the Buddha meditated morning, midday, and evening. He didn't have a timepiece during his lifetime because they weren't invented yet. So when he talks about when he meditated, it's described in his teachings that he meditated morning, midday, and evening. And what I notice is, if you meditate somewhere in the morning, you kind of have like a little anchor point. Maybe you wake up, you empty out the organs, and maybe you meditate. Maybe for some people, they might need to exercise or have some food before they meditate. For me, I just meditate right away, first thing in the morning. And then somewhere in the middle of the day, if you'd like to meditate, you can. And then in the evening, it's nice to meditate as well. But what you would like to do is meditate before your mind becomes sleepy. Sometimes people wait until they get sleepy and then they start meditating. But remember, it's an active meditation. It's a dedicated, purposeful meditation. So if you normally go to sleep at, say, 10 p.m. at night, and you know you're going to meditate for about 30 minutes, you'd probably like to start meditating around 9 or 9:15 when your mind is still active and attentive. Whereas if you're sleepy and drowsy and you start meditating, you're not going to get the same benefit. So if you get into this, process and this frequency of being able to meditate at least twice a day, morning and evening, you'll notice that as you're training your mind and you're getting more and more of the pollution out of the mind, you will sleep better. You'll get better quality sleep, because one of the things that the mind does in the unenlightened state is, as you're dozing off or you're trying to doze off, your mind might be sitting there obsessively thinking about your day or what you're going to do in the future. There might be certain impactful decisions that you're looking to make, and you might find that your mind is very worried and obsessively thinking about the various things you have going on in your life. And when you can train your mind in meditation to let go, you can get to the point where you return back to being able to sleep like you were when you were a child. Children, they can fall asleep anywhere, right? They just, boom, they're out, right? That's because, they don't have the significant craving and desire and attachment the way that the adult mind does, that as we age, we take on a lot of conditioning in our mind, and we tend to really worry a lot in the unenlightened state. But you can get to the point where you clear all that out, and you'll find that you'll be able to fall asleep with ease. And then once you do fall asleep, you'll get better and better quality sleep, and you'll need less of it. So you'll be more productive in your day because you'll have more waking hours to be able to do things. So if you meditate, kind of like 45 minutes to an hour before you get sleepy, that's ideal. And then you'll get that better quality sleep, and it'll just help everything in your life function more at ease because your mind's rested. Oftentimes when the mind's not rested, an individual might be grumpy because they're craving for their body and their mind to feel a certain way. When it doesn't feel that way, they will be grumpy and irritable. But it's not because of the lack of sleep, it's because of the craving for sleep that's causing the mind to do that. And by getting good quality sleep, then you won't crave sleep because you'll got it, you have it. Yeah, you're welcome. Max, I see you're going to watch Facebook and YouTube. That's excellent. Thank you for that help. I appreciate it. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions here. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to move into sharing a very simple, very basic teaching of the Buddha. Let me just turn on the visual aids here for the people online. Okay, so everybody should be able to see this now. Okay, so there's this teaching called the Middle Way. This teaching of the Middle Way that the Buddha shares, it's a very simple, very basic teaching that he teaches, but it's very profound when you apply it to your life. So if you understand this teaching of the Middle Way and then you apply it to your life, it can be very profound. It'll take me all of about 5 or 10 minutes to actually teach it to you, maybe even not that long. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some various examples with you to be able to help you understand how to apply it to your life, because that's where the real power of this comes in. And as I mentioned, as you guys have questions, you're welcome to ask any and all questions as we go. So this teaching of the Middle Way, it comes from the Buddha describing what our mind is experiencing in the unenlightened state and how it moves to the enlightened mental state. He describes this instrument, a lute. And this instrument, it's like a stringed instrument. Maybe we might think of a guitar or some kind of stringed instrument nowadays. And he observed that when the string of the instrument is too tight and you pluck it, that the instrument doesn't play beautiful music. It doesn't play the way that's intended to play, and it doesn't sound good. And the same thing is true if the string is too loose and you pluck this string, that it doesn't play beautiful music. It doesn't play the way the instrument is intended to play. And it's only when you tune this string perfectly in the middle, and now you pluck the string, that the instrument plays beautiful music the way that it was intended to be played. And he noticed the same thing about the human mind, that when the mind is holding on to things too tight, and there's a lot of, longing and yearning in the mind, that it doesn't perform optimally. But also if you hold things too loose, if you're kind of indifferent and could care less, that there the mind doesn't perform well either, because it's kind of dull and lethargic. It's only when you bring the mind to the middle and you fine tune the mind, that now being in the middle, that it can perform optimally. By the time you train the mind to get to enlightenment, there's focus, concentration, clarity of mind, there's deep memory, because you've eliminated the pollutions of the mind. By having pollutions that the Buddha discovered, 10 individual pollutions that are referred to as the 10 fetters, by having those pollutions in your mind, it doesn't perform optimally. Your mind's either too tight or it's too loose. So by getting these pollutions out of the mind and bringing your mind to the middle, it can perform optimally. And you can notice this as you're training in the teachings of the Buddha. This is the very unique thing about teachings that the Buddha shared, that it's not believe, and hope something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning now in this life. You're learning his teachings. You then reflect on those teachings to independently verify them. Then you practice his teachings in order to transform the mind and uproot the pollution out of the mind. And by doing the learning, reflecting, and practicing now, you actually see the results now in this life, that the condition of your mind and the condition of your life gradually improves. You'll start seeing that things where you were once angry and frustrated and irritated, those same situations are occurring and you don't experience those feelings anymore. You'll start noticing your personal and professional relationships are blossoming, that you're able to conduct yourself with ease and more harmony in your relationships. And it's bringing the mind to the middle that is going to help you to be able to do that. Because as long as you're chasing things with craving, desire, attachment, there's longing and yearning, your mind's not performing optimally. You're just pursuing selfish desires. But also, if you were indifferent and you just were dull and lethargic in your life and really didn't apply your effort and energy to accomplishing anything, you're not going to be able to see success and benefit there either. Your mind's going to feel dull and lethargic. So he provides these teachings, which is called the Eightfold Path, which I taught last week. That is these 8 individual dials that you dial into your life closer and closer in order to fine-tune the mind. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha that he shares, and meditation is part of that Eightfold Path. But as I mentioned earlier, there's other things that you need to learn besides just meditation in order to get to enlightenment. So this Eightfold Path is the middle way. The Buddha explains it very clearly in his teachings. He says the Eightfold Path is the middle way. That's what he came to, he was able to transform his mind and get to this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy that we call enlightenment, where his mind never experienced any anger or frustration ever again. His mind was permanently in that mental state where he was always peaceful and joyful. And you can experience that same mental state today by understanding his teachings and then applying them in your life and being able to see the truth for yourself, that they work in order to transform the mind. So understanding this middle way is to understand that the mind, as long as it's chasing and it's pursuing selfish desires, you're not going to be able to be permanently peaceful and joyful. Because in the situations where you get what you want, you're going to get pleasant feelings. You're going to get happy, excited, elated because you got what you want. But when you're chasing and wanting things to be a certain way and you don't get what you want because you can't get what you want permanently, you'll be sad and you'll be frustrated and you'll be irritated. So as long as you allow the mind to chase with craving, desire, attachment, you'll get temporary happiness occasionally. It'll arise, it'll change, and it'll fade away. But there's going to be situations where you don't get what you want and you'll get frustrated and irritated or annoyed. But also, if you live over here on this side where the mind's indifferent and dull and lethargic, you're not pursuing any goals in your life. You're not doing anything that would move your life forward and accomplish any beneficial results in your life. And there, you're not able to build your life and develop your life in a way that's going to be beneficial for you or the people around you. So coming to this middle way and understanding that there is a middle way, the mind can be peaceful there. It can be joyful. So pursuing things as a goal, an objective, or an interest would be the middle way. We're chasing things, that's not the middle way, but doing nothing and being around lethargic and dull, that's not the middle way. It's only when you're pursuing things as a goal, objective, or interest that you're able to accomplish things in the middle way without this longing and yearning. So this is essentially what the middle way is practicing the Eightfold Path. And I taught this last week. I have recordings of this. I have retreats and courses that I teach, and you can attend these classes online as you travel around the world. You can attend them here at the temple. I teach these classes twice a day, in the morning and the evening. So now let's talk about how to apply this idea of this teaching of the middle way to your life. Okay. So understanding that the mind isn't going to be peaceful permanently chasing things, and understanding that when you're indifferent, the mind's not going to be peaceful there either, that it's going to be dull and lethargic. Let's look at a couple of examples of life and how we might apply this to our life. So let's just say that you have a goal to travel. Maybe you're traveling, right? And right now, some of you guys might be traveling in Thailand. Whereas if you traveled excessively, where you were craving and longing and yearning, and you were chasing, traveling, moving around all the time, constantly on the go, 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 go. This is the mind potentially craving. And if your mind is doing that, you're going to find that it's hard to experience the peace and joy because you're constantly on the go. But also, if you never went somewhere else and experience some other things, you might feel kind of dull and lethargic, right? So coming to this middle way, you might find that traveling a certain period of time based on your budget, your finances, the way that you conduct your life, you have a certain middle way. And that middle way is different for each person. I can't tell you where the middle is for your particular life in terms of travel. Everybody has to find that middle for themselves. And when you find that middle, your mind will feel at ease. You'll feel peace and you'll feel joy. But if your mind is feeling this go, 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 where you're chasing and you're pulling towards something, you can't feel contentedness there. But also, if you sat around and did nothing, again, dull and lethargic, your mind wouldn't feel comfortable there either. So this is just one topic of something like travel. Let's think about perhaps spending time with family or friends. If we always wanted to spend time with our family and friends, and we just reveled in that, and we just spent excessive amount of time with our family and friends, okay, if you're doing that, then you're not taking time for yourself personally, right? But then also, if you always spent time alone and you never spent time with other people, you would just be kind of locked in a cave, so to speak, and find it very difficult and socially challenging to go out into the world because you're always spending time alone. So if you were on either side of this, where you were excessively spending time with friends and family, or you were always spending time alone, you wouldn't find peace and joy there. So you're going to need to come to this middle way where you sometimes spend time with your family and friends, but you also spend time alone, and you also spend time going to work and things like this. You live kind of this balanced lifestyle, and you need to find that balance for yourself. And when you get to that balance, you'll feel the peace and the joy. It almost feels like the mind is taking a breath of fresh air. When you're living in the craving, the mind's not going to be content there. And when you're living in the dullness and lethargic, your mind's not going to be content there either. So you got to find that middle way and then pursue that and get to the point where the mind feels that contentedness and that peace and the joy. Let's look at something like maybe like finances. If you were chasing money, for example, and you were go, 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 and you want all this money, 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 and you were chasing that, right? You're not going to be able to get to permanent peacefulness and permanent joy because there's never enough money that can fulfill you. No matter how much money you get, you always want more. Maybe you start out with a $30,000 a year salary. You're kind of happy for a period of time. And then after 3 months or 6 months, it's not enough anymore. You want more. You want 50,000. So you chase and chase and chase and chase and chase. And now you get 50,000. And now you're happy for a period of time, maybe 3 months, 6 months, that fades away, and now you want 80,000, and you chase that, or some amount of money in your bank account, a certain amount in your bank account, and you just chase it and chase it and chase it and chase it. Again, the mind can't be content because there's never enough. It can feel happy for a period of time when you get to what you want, but then ultimately that happiness fades away because it's based on some condition. But also over here, if you never pursued income and you never actually looked for ways to improve your income to be able to provide for your food, your water, your clothing, your shelter, your medical care, if you just sat around and you didn't apply your effort to build new skills and try to acquire new job or a new customer or something like that, if you were just dull and lethargic about your career, that's not going to produce contentedness and peacefulness in your life either. So you need to come to this middle way where you realize that yes, you're going to need some income and finances and money in your life, and you're going to need to pursue that, and you're going to maybe even need to get some new skills and apply yourself in the career and your workforce. And now you just gradually work towards that and acquiring certain money that you need to take care of your food, water, clothing, shelter, medical care, and other things that you might need as part of your life. Because when there's craving, the mind's going to chase its wants. The mind's going to want this and want that and want this and want that. Maybe you want the brand new phone, the brand new computer, the brand new car, the bigger house, the bigger car, the nicer clothes, the nicer jewelry. The mind's just going to want to chase all these things. But then when the mind's over here being dull and lethargic, again, it's just sitting around not really doing anything at all. So you need to find that middle way with your finances, with your relationships, with even your generosity. One of the teachings that the Buddha shares is practicing generosity, that you give and you share, because this helps you to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. When the mind's having this craving, it tends to be very selfish and it holds on to things very tightly. So what we do is we practice various teachings on this path to be able to train the mind to let go. And one of the teachings that we practice is generosity, where we're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. We share our time, our effort, our energy, our resources. This is a way to train the mind to let go and eliminate craving, desire, attachment, to eliminate selfishness. But even something like generosity, if you shared it based in craving, desire, attachment, where you were sharing excessively, this is going to deplete your resources and you're not going to be able to sustain your life with the food, water, clothing, shelter, and medical care that you need. But also, if you never practiced generosity and you became very selfish, that's not going to produce beneficial results in your life either. So even with something wholesome like generosity, you need to find the middle way where you're gradually looking for ways to share in the world, and you're not having this selfishness, but you're also not sharing excessively either. So there's many aspects of your life that you're going to need to look at, and you're going to need to decide, what's the middle way for you. So let me talk about a situation where I was practicing and I wasn't not practicing the middle way. So when I first started growing up, I got to the age of 17 and I bought my first brand new car, right? And when I bought this first brand new car, I was very attached to it, right? It was a brand new car. Well, it wasn't brand new. It was 3 years old at the time, right? So I bought this used car and I bought it. I put tinted windows in it. I put some big speakers in the back so I could drive down the street, thump, 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 right? And I put this nice wheels on the car and I just thought I was the man, right? I used to wash this car sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. I was excessively washing this car using all kinds of water and soap and sponges. I'd be out there waxing this car, taking care of it. And this was quite excessive. And I found that it was very difficult to study. I was going to college at this time and I was having challenges focusing on my studyings and getting good grades because I was excessively taking care of this car, vacuuming it, doing all kinds of things to it. And then I was so obsessive about this car that if it got any little amount of dirt or bugs or something like this on it, I was very angry. I was very frustrated and irritated when it would get dirty, and I would obsessively clean this car. But also, if I never cleaned this car and it got dirty and old and started deteriorating, that wouldn't be wise either. So over time, I had to gradually get to the point where I found this middle way with this car. Without understanding the teachings of the Buddha at that age, I ultimately found the middle way with this car where I started washing it occasionally, maybe once a month or once every 2 or 3 months or something like this. And that was the middle way. But when I was living in that craving, desire, attachment, it was uncomfortable, being under the car, scrubbing every little piece of dirt off of the fenders and everything like this. That's going to take up a lot of your time. So there's various things in your life that you're doing now that you may not be in the middle with, that you might be longing, yearning, you might be chasing after certain things. And you're going to need to throttle that back and pull that back. But you're not going to just throttle it back and go right to the middle. Typically, what the unenlightened mind does is as you're pulling back craving, desire, attachment, it doesn't quite know where the middle is. So it will kind of overshoot the middle. And it might move over to this dullness and lethargic, this complacency. It's kind of like a pendulum that as you let go of the craving, the mind swings to the other side, overshooting the middle. And now when you see your mind is not in the middle there, and there's some dullness or complacency there, you might have to bring the mind back over, and now it kind of overshoots the middle again. You're not quite going all the way to the craving that you had before, but it kind of overshoots the middle a little bit. And eventually, as this pendulum kind of comes to the middle and you get to the middle, you'll notice that because the mind will be at ease. It'll be comfortable. There'll be peace and joy. It'll feel like your mind's taking a breath of fresh air. So in each individual topic in your life, you're going to need to find the middle, whether it's your finances, whether it's taking care of your home or your car, whether it's spending time with your life partner or your children, whether it's spending time alone, whether it's reading, even learning the teachings of the Buddha. You need to find the middle way. Whereas if you were trying to learn the teachings of the Buddha 6, 8, 10 hours a day, obsessively chasing enlightenment, you're not going to be able to get to it. But also if you were indifferent and you never came to the temple, you never met with a teacher, you never read a book, you never did any meditation, your mind's not going to see improvement there. So even like something to get to enlightenment, you need to pursue it as a goal, as an objective, as an interest where you're not chasing it, but you're gradually working towards this goal. And then once you get to this middle, you need to be aware that the middle changes, that it's not just a straight path from where you are now directly to the mountain. Instead, this path ebbs and flows. So let's take an example like generosity. Let's just say right now that you have a certain job, you're making a certain amount of income, and you're well taken care of, and you have excessive amount of money, or maybe you have more than you need, right? And maybe now you're able to maybe donate your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources to a certain level of degree. And you've maybe found the middle at this point in your life, perhaps, with something like generosity. Maybe you're sharing, let's just say $100, $200, $300 a month with a particular cause. Maybe you're sharing your time by volunteering with that organization and so forth and so on. And you're finding that this is the middle for you at this particular time, for example. But now, let's just say your life circumstances change. Let's say that you have a baby, or let's say that your parents get ill or sick, and now you don't have those same resources available anymore. Maybe you need to direct them towards your parents or your child, or maybe your own health, or maybe your own education. Maybe your job has changed and you need to go back and get some more education. And now you can't share maybe $200 or $300 a month. You can't share the same amount of time, effort, and energy that you once did, because that middle has now changed. So once your mind finds the middle on a particular topic, you need to understand impermanence, that things are going to be constantly changing, that it's not a direct path from where you are now to the mountain, but instead there's this ebbing and flowing that you need to be consciously aware of. And this is where your mindfulness comes into play, that you need to have that awareness of mind and see the peacefulness that's in the mind. So if you can get to the middle way on any particular topic, in this example, generosity, and you find that middle way, then you need to be aware of that middle and see as you go through life, is it changing? Is it ebbing and flowing to the point where now maybe you need to pull back your resources a little bit and you can't share as much? And that doesn't mean you did anything wrong or you're a bad person. You can't cling to a certain decision. So if you made a decision now that you're going to share $300 a month with a particular organization or 2 or 3 or 4 different organizations and a certain amount of time and effort and energy, but now as things change in your life, you can't cling to that decision of $300 a month and all that time, effort, and energy. You need to be willing to let that go. And maybe you throttle it back. And maybe $20 a month is what you can share now. And you can only share with one organization instead of 3 or 4 or 5. And maybe instead of sharing 10 hours a month with these different organizations that you volunteer at, maybe you need to throttle it back to 1 hour a month. And that's where you need to be for the next 6 months or a year or 2 years while you're addressing the needs of your parents, while you're addressing the needs of your children or your own needs. And then over time, as things change, you can always throttle it back up if that's what you need to do. So this middle way is something that you can move to with all these different topics in your life, but then you need to be aware that as your life is changing due to impermanence, this middle way is going to ebb and flow, and you need to just kind of flow with it and find that middle. The middle way that the Buddha teaches is the Eightfold Path. This is how you find the middle, and then you are able to then stay there, that you practice all these individual steps. And this is what I taught you last week: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is organized into the wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline sections. That mindfulness or awareness of mind is what is helping you to find the middle. And then once you're there, to be able to stay there. Because as I just mentioned, this middle way, it ebbs and flows depending on impermanence in your life. So your awareness of mind that you cultivate in meditation, and then you practice it in daily life, is what will help you to find the middle where the mind can be peaceful and joyful. And then once you find it, you pay attention to the mind with your awareness of mind. And then as you need to either increase what you're doing or decrease what you're doing, you're able to observe that and notice that with your mindfulness. Okay, so this is what I have to teach you guys. It's a very simple teaching, and the examples that I shared are just a few examples. But what I would like to do is give you guys an opportunity to ask questions, if you like, about the middle way in your life. Maybe there's certain aspects of your life that you're struggling and challenged to be able to find the middle, and maybe you would like help to be able to find that middle. So we can talk about that, whether you're online or you're here at the temple. If you guys have certain examples or situations that you would like to talk about, and maybe you're having challenges finding the middle, we can kind of talk about it, and I can help you to be able to find that middle. Or if you need to share some different examples to make sure you understand this teaching to even begin with, we can do that as well. So as you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. We have 2 microphones around. You guys are welcome to get a microphone and ask any questions that you like. Those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that you like. All right, looks like Max, you have a question. Go ahead.
Sir, thank you. So I think I may already know the answer, but I would love to get your take on it. So, like, for instance, you use, tuning a guitar string perfectly or whatever, and that word kind of raised a question about perfection or whatever. So I can be a perfectionist with certain things in my life, striving for perfection, or wanting things to be, I guess it'd be almost like craving for things to be a certain way or whatnot. But following the middle way, and for instance, tuning a guitar string perfectly, it wouldn't take long to tune a guitar string perfectly, versus over obsessing about something and having it take way too long, and it wouldn't be the middle way of taking way too long, of wanting certain things, spending too much time to make it perfect, versus some things are good enough. Is that a question, or do you understand what I'm getting at?
I think so. Let me provide an answer that I think you're looking for, and then if I'm not quite hitting it, feel free to ask follow-up questions, Max. So yes, the mind can be obsessive, right? It can chase things obsessively, chasing perfection, right? But then you can also just understand that it's wise to make wise decisions, in that you need to gradually move towards improvement in your life, where if you're chasing perfection, then that's unwise. That's going to produce unwholesome results. But if you are making decisions and you're trying to get to a better and better result, and you just know that over time you need to gradually increment this thing and get it to be better and better, and you're working towards improvement, this can be done as a goal, objective, or interest. I'll give you an example from my life. This book series that I wrote, the 13 books, I started with the first book, and I started, I guess 2018 is when I started writing the book. And I didn't even know it was going to be a book when I first started writing it. I just wrote the first chapter, which ended up being the fourth chapter about the Four Noble Truths. I just started writing it up because I knew people didn't understand the Four Noble Truths. So I started writing about the Four Noble Truths, and slowly but surely it became a book. Well, over a course of 3.5 years, I gradually tweaked that book more and more, because as I was teaching and using that book, I was noticing certain words that I was using in class that wasn't in the books. And those words were helping the students to really understand the teachings. So over a period of 3.5 years, I tweaked it and tweaked it and tweaked it. And you've been studying with me long enough, Max, that you've probably seen certain tweaks to that book over time. And when I first wrote the book, I wrote it and it maybe had, 8 or 10 chapters in it, and I put it out. And then, all right, this was good enough. This was as much as I could do at that particular time. But then as I started observing certain questions that students were asking, certain words that were working, certain things that students didn't understand, I needed to add to this book. And then slowly but surely, I improved it, where now I think the book is exactly where it needs to be. It works really well. The students really benefit from it. It's been translated into different languages. It's in English, but it's also been translated into Arabic and Chinese, and now it's being moved into Spanish, and different people are benefiting from it. And that's a great example of, okay, when I first launched it, it was good enough of what I could do at that particular time. But then I still was interested in seeing it be improved, but I wasn't doing it obsessively. I just gradually worked towards it over a 3.5 year period of time. And you have different things in your life that way, whether it's your house or your children or your job or anything like this. You're just gradually working towards continuous improvement, but without chasing it and being obsessed about it.
Okay, thank you, sir. That makes sense.
Okay, perfect. All right, so since you're watching Facebook and YouTube, I'm not looking there, so I guess there's no questions coming in there. Do you guys have anything that you guys would like to ask about? It looks like Samantha has a question. And there's another microphone back there as well if you guys would like to participate.
I have one comment first, just about what Max just said. I think that a lot of times perfection is a lot like the feelings that we have, that you said that we have control over that no one else does. The perfection oftentimes is in our own mind and not what other people think is perfection. So if you can change your expectations of your perfection, then they may not be so hard to attain. I don't know what Max was alluding to in his life, but perhaps his job or something he was working on, or a project. Yep. Oftentimes what we consider to be perfection is much more than others would. And so if you can moderate that, perhaps it's not as hard to attain.
Yeah, what I would encourage students to do is eliminate expectations. Mm-hmm. As soon as you have an expectation of something, you're setting yourself up to fail. You're sabotaging yourself, because the expectation is the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, and now you're going to fall short of that potentially, and then you'll be frustrated, irritated, or annoyed. But even if you get your expectations met, they're not going to be met permanently. So therefore, you might get temporary happiness, but then that's going to fade away. So like this book, if we'll keep with that example, when I launched that book, I knew that there was going to be people who disagreed with what I wrote and thought that what I wrote was no good. But I know that if people penetrated it close enough and they saw the words of the Buddha and they practiced it, I know that they would get the benefits. So as I launched that book, there were certain people that would attack me online and say, how dare you say this, that, or the other thing? The Buddha didn't teach that. He taught this other thing. But I had the words of the Buddha right there to be able to show people what they were. And I was like, okay, practice it. Don't believe me, practice what you see in the book. So my idea, and other person's idea is going to be completely different. But if I have an expectation that I'm going to satisfy everybody with this book, that's not realistic because of impermanence. There's going to be some people who think this is the best book that's ever been written about Buddhism, and there's going to be other people that think it's the worst book. That's just impermanence. But if we have an expectation of anything at all, then because of impermanence, we're not going to be able to meet that permanently, and then we're sabotaging our mind to experience these conditioned feelings of pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant.
Thank you. I did have a question. You answered quite a bit of it when you talked about generosity. It seems like, from a young age, I was taught not to indulge in selfishness. And so I guess the opposite of that would be selflessness. But it does seem that there is a point where that could become unwholesome or uncomfortable, in the fact that it becomes self-sacrifice. So I think that's what you were getting at with generosity, is fighting a moderation with that. So in the concept of Buddhism, is there ever a need or a use for self-sacrifice, or should it always be, or more of a moderation as far as what you do for yourself and for others?
It's always moderation. It's always the middle way. Sacrificing yourself doesn't help anybody at all. Ultimately, you learn the universal truth of non-self, that there is no self there. But sacrificing and exhausting yourself for the benefit of others just leaves you depleted. And this is where you burn out and you're no good for anybody. So one of the things that an enlightened being is able to do is sustain their energy, sustain their vitality and their vigor. You never get depleted as an enlightened being. In the unenlightened state, we'll get to the end of our day at work and you might feel completely exhausted. You might feel like you're carrying bricks on your feet or on your shoulders, and you'll feel completely wiped out because you're walking around with craving, desire, attachment. And in some situations, you get what you want and you feel happy and excited. In other situations, you don't get what you want and you feel angry or sad or frustrated. And this is very hard for the mind because it's going up and down and up and down, and you can feel completely exhausted and depleted at the end of your life. And in some cultures, we're taught to just give and self-sacrifice, right? And that's somehow deemed as, kind of holy, so to speak, right? And people think that if you spend time for yourself, someone might say this is selfish. But it's not true. This is the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality. What the Buddha teaches, it's called delusion or confusion or misunderstanding, that the unenlightened mind has various misunderstandings that cause us difficulties in our life. And when we arise wisdom, we can see the truth that going around feeling depleted doesn't help anybody at all. So if you can find that middle way, then you can help people when you're able to help them. But then when you need to spend time alone and kind of revitalize, you can do that as well. Whereas if you were craving to help others, you would get to depletion, you would get to exhaustion, you would get to burnout where you're completely burned out. And now, who are you good for? You're not good for those people. You're not good for yourself either. So by the time you are practicing the middle way, the Eightfold Path in its entirety, you're able to maintain your vigor, your ambition, your enthusiasm, your motivation all the time. You won't see an enlightened being depleted and frustrated because they understand the middle way and they're practicing everything that they're practicing is the middle way, whether it's their relationships, their work, their finances, anything they're doing in the world, they're doing it from the middle way and they're never depleted. But they're also not selfish either. Right? They're helping others and they're practicing generosity. So you find that middle with all these different things. And that's where the peace and the joy comes in, because you're never depleted. Other questions? Max, looks like you have your hand up.
Yes, sir. On YouTube, he has comment and questions. On the concept of perfection, Alan Watts pointed out that there is no imperfection in nature. So are we imperfect or perfect?
I don't think of it as being perfect or imperfect. An individual is just an individual, right? An individual that has an unenlightened mind, there's certain pollutions that are in the mind, and an individual is going to have certain struggles and certain difficulties because of those pollutions, because of the lack of wisdom, because of the unknowing of true reality. An individual is going to struggle. By the time the mind gets to the enlightened mental state, there's no more struggle. The mind is at ease. You're able to conduct your life with ease. So if we try to look at ourselves and consider ourselves perfect or imperfect, this is to judge another being, and this is unwise, because you're putting yourself either above or below people, or you're diminishing yourself. And I don't suggest that that would be wise. Even the Buddha teaches not to judge. Where this is coming from is one's own conceit. If we have conceit in the mind, which is one of the pollutions, then the mind's going to be arrogant and prideful and boastful. You're going to look at yourself as being above people or below people. But instead, in order to get to enlightenment, you need to see yourself as equal, that everybody's equal. Even though other people might try to put themselves above you or below you, your mind needs to get to the point where you don't judge others as being perfect or imperfect, as good and bad, or anything like this, but you just see everybody as equal. Everybody's wherever they are in their own life, they're on their own independent journey. And if someone's mind is unenlightened, they're going to have certain struggles and difficulties, and they're working through those struggles and difficulties. In some cases, people are doing the work and trying to progress towards improvement in their life. And in some cases, people aren't. And that's their choice, and they're experiencing the results of that. So I would encourage you to not think about or try to determine if you or other people are perfect or imperfect, but instead just look at it as everybody's making their journey in life, and people are either working towards improvement in their life or they're not, and that's their decision, and they're experiencing the results of that.
And the next question that B asks is, does perfectionism even exist?
A Buddha is going to be fully, perfectly enlightened, that by the time an individual who is a Buddha gets to enlightenment, they're not going to be doing anything unwise whatsoever. They're going to be only practicing wisdom that leads to wholesome results. And by the time somebody gets to enlightenment, they will also be practicing that wisdom and only making wise decisions to be able to get to this wholesome results that we experience. So while it's unwise to have obsession and chasing after perfection, you can gradually tweak what you're doing in life and working towards a better and better version of yourself. Even though there's not a self there, you can work to gradual improvement of that. And by the time an individual gets to enlightenment, and then of course a fully perfectly enlightened Buddha is going to be functioning perfectly, meaning that they're only making wise decisions. They're not causing harm to others, and therefore because of those wise decisions, only wholesome results are coming back. But they would have gotten to that through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So the perfection that one would aspire for, and that I would suggest that somebody works towards, is to train their mind to get to enlightenment. Once all the pollutions are out of the mind's completely purified. In this situation, we don't refer to an enlightened being as being perfect. We refer to a Buddha as being perfectly enlightened, because they did the work on their own without the help of any teachers or any guides. Then they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing those independently discovered teachings with countless people. And then countless people get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. And then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people can get to enlightenment after their death. So a Buddha does a tremendous amount of work on their own mind, and then sharing those teachings to help other people get to enlightenment, and then preserving their teachings so that other people can get to enlightenment. So we refer to this person as fully perfect perfectly enlightened, a Buddha or a Tathagata. An enlightened being, in my opinion, they are a perfect being, because now at this point they're not causing any harm. They're having deep wisdom to be able to practice in such a way that they're not causing harm to others. But what an individual determines as perfect is up to each individual. I don't think that it would be wise to subject yourself or relegate yourself to imperfection and think that, okay, well, I'm smoking cigarettes, so therefore I'm just going to accept the fact that that's who I am and I'm an imperfect being, and I'm never going to eliminate this smoking of cigarettes. Or I use drugs and alcohol and I'm just going to accept the fact that I'm imperfect and that's just the way life is. If I was an individual who is aspiring to experience a better and better life, you can look at some of these things, some of these decisions that we make. You can see the natural law of karma, of cause and effect and action and result, and see that by purifying these types of things from our practice, that we can become a better and better version of ourselves and ultimately get to what some people might consider perfection, which is only making wise decisions that would only produce wholesome results. And in my opinion, that would be perfection, but not in a judgmental way. I wouldn't judge it as being perfection, but just knowing what enlightenment is and knowing what one can experience once the mind is enlightened. That is, in my opinion, what I would consider to be perfection, because at that point, you're not causing harm to anyone. You're only experiencing wholesome results.
Yes, sir.
All right, you're welcome. Anything you guys have here at the temple? No? Okay. Well, as I mentioned, this is a very short, very basic teaching. It's very simple. It's probably one of the shortest chapters in this book to help students to understand what the middle way is and then how to actually practice it. The power in this teaching is when you're actually practicing it. It can be very profound, but learning it, it's very simple. It's very basic. And then it's actually applying it in daily life, particularly through the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is very deep and very rich, and that's why I taught it last week, and I've taught it at other times, various courses and retreats and programs, and it's a very extensive chapter in this first book. So if you're at all interested in experiencing this peace, calm, serenity, and contentedness with joy that is the enlightened mind, you would need to know the Eightfold Path inside and out, backwards and forwards. And I use the words of the Buddha to be able to help you understand this so that you can then learn it, you can reflect on it to independently verify it, and you can practice it. And as you see the condition of the mind improving, you'll know that it's the truth, that it's working towards an improved condition of your mind and an improved condition of your life. So if you guys would like to continue to learn, you're welcome to come here at the temple on Sunday, Wednesdays, and Saturdays at 9 a.m. We also have various courses and retreats throughout the year, and we live stream these classes from here. And we also have a class in the evening at 9 p.m. Thai time that we live stream as well. So no matter where you are in the world, you should be able to find a class either 9 a.m. Thai time or 9 p.m. And if you can't make the live class, it's recorded and you can watch the recording through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. And all these resources are available to you at no cost. You can even listen to the podcast. You can get private personal guidance and all kinds of help to be able to make your way to enlightenment. Next week on Sunday, I'm going to be teaching Chapter 7, which is titled The 5 Precepts, A Householder's Guide to Daily Practice. This is where you're going to be able to learn the words of the Buddha around 5 impactful decisions that an individual can make in their life. And if you make unwise decisions related to these 5 precepts, it's going to produce unwholesome results in your life. Oftentimes people have heard that the Buddha taught no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, no intoxicants. This isn't what the Buddha taught. This sounds like rules or commandments. This sounds like black and white. This sounds like somebody's trying to force you or convince you to do one thing or the other. Instead, what the 5 precepts are is using the words of the Buddha. He uses this very illuminating language to be able to help you understand the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result, not punishments and rewards, not this mystical, magical thing that's following you around. Literally the results of your decisions, that when you make unwise decisions, it will produce unwholesome results. And when you make wise decisions, it will produce wholesome results. So the 5 precepts are helping you to understand 5 major impactful decisions that you could make, and giving you language to be able to help you understand this natural law of cause and effect, or action and result, the natural law of karma, or some people might say karma. So I'm going to be teaching that next Sunday, and you can read this in the book by downloading it from our website. You can get it for free. You can take the book and go print it if you'd like a printed version, or if you'd like printed copies, you can get them here at the temple or online through Amazon, and you're just essentially reimbursing us for the cost of printing it. So thank you all for joining for today's class. As you have questions, feel free to let me know, and I'm here to help all of you guys. Have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Sawadee Kap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.